Hi students, this is Ms. Medina, and so we're going to go over this worksheet. Addition property of equality is what allows us to add the same quantity to both sides. So for example, if we have 5x equals 20 and we say plus 6, well, this is the left side of the equation. I also have to add 6 on the right hand side. That maintains equality. Now on the right hand side, 20 and 6 are like terms, so we get 26. But on the left hand side, 5x and 6 are not like terms, so we just keep them separate. Right, so this is still equality. Right here is the addition property of equality. Subtraction property of equality, same deal. Let's say we start with 5x equals 20. If I subtract 6 from the right hand side, I have to subtract 6 from the left hand side so that everything stays equal. Right, so these on the left are not alike, so I cannot combine, but here on the right hand side, this gives us 14. Okay. Multiplication property. If I multiply the right hand side by 4, then I also have to multiply the left hand side by 4. Right, so 20x equals 80. Right, so division property of equality. 5x equals 20. Right, so let's say that I divide this one by 4. No, 4 is going to give me 5. Let's just go ahead and divide both sides by 5. 5 over 5 is going to give us 1, so this becomes x equals 4. And so these properties allow us to modify the equation so that we're able to isolate the variable. Operations and identities. All right, so there's two types of properties of operations. They're commutative properties and the associative properties. And this one deals with addition, whereas this one deals with multiplication. Commutative. Some of you guys don't know the word to commute. To commute means that you go from one place to another, and it's usually used for people that work and they have to get to their workplace. They're commuters. Students that don't live on campus are considered commuters. So to commute is to move from one place to another. Commutative property of addition is when you move over an addition sign. Property of multiplication is when you move over a multiplication sign. So watch this. We had A plus B, right? So we had 5 plus 3. The commutative property over addition allows us to swap places. We can also say 3 plus 5. It's the same thing. We can do this over multiplication. So if we have 5 times 3, this commutative property of multiplication, once again, allows us to move places. So we can say 3 times 5. It's still the same thing. Now, associative of addition and multiplication, this one is to associate. To associate with somebody is to hang out with somebody. That means to form a small group. So this deals with 3 terms. So for example, 5 plus 3 plus 2, right, equals, well, we know it equals 10, right? And how do we do this? Well, you could add those two first. 5 plus 3 is 8. 8 plus 2 is 10. Right, but we can also think of this as 5 plus 3 plus 2. Instead of adding the 5 and the 3, we can add the 3 and the 2. Right? And that'll give us what? 5 plus 5. In either case, you still end up with 10. So the associative property of addition allows us to group addition parts in whatever order we want, and in the end we're still going to get the same answer. So this is the same thing for multiplication. So let's say you're multiplying these numbers, right? Well, you can say, well, 5 times 3 is 15. 15 times 2 is 30. All right, that's fine. You can also group them like this. You can multiply the 3 and the 2. 3 times 2 is 6. 6 times 5 is 30. So this associative property of multiplication allows you to group multiplication terms in whichever order you want and still get the same result. Okay. All right, identity. Distributive property. We've talked about this one in class. Distributive property merely says if you have a number outside of parentheses, right? We just multiply it in. So this gives us 6x minus 30, right? So we maintain, it's not even equality, it's just rewriting something that is still the same terms. So distributive property. All right, so you'll notice with this next one, they both have the word identity. When you think of the word identity, you have to think of the word mirror. Because when you look in the mirror, it's you. You don't change. Even if you change your hairstyle, it's still you. You retain your identity. So in addition, 0, it has an additive identity, because if you add 0 to a number, the number still remains the same. 8 plus 0 is 8. Negative 3 plus 0 is negative 3. So the number stays the same. So the additive property of 0 is that it maintains the identity of the number. The multiplicative property of 1 is that if you multiply by 1, you maintain the identity of that number. Right? So if we're talking about addition, right, which number has an additive identity property? 0. When we're talking about multiplication, which number has the multiplicative identity property? 1. The next properties are inverses. One is of addition and the other one is multiplication, right? And for this one, you have to think opposite. Right? Opposite of addition, opposite of multiplication. So if you have a number 8 and you want to add, the additive inverse is negative 8, because that is the only number that when you add them, you get 0. So that's the definition of an additive inverse. Is what is the number that when you add them, when you create a sum, you end up with 0. So for negative 3, the additive inverse would be positive 3. Right? Because that's the number that would give us 0 when we add. The multiplicative inverse is the one that when we multiply, we get a 1. So this one is also known as the reciprocal. So for example, 8 over 3, the inverse or multiplicative inverse would be 3 over 8. And this is because when we multiply them, we get 1. Multiplicative property of 0 says that if you multiply by 0, you're going to get 0. It's a beautiful property of 0. Only 0 has this property, okay? And I left this one blank in class.